here saying you're going to have a Republican in your cabinet. It's not good. It is not good. She needs white women. I understand that. I'm not against that, but there's a way to do that while simultaneously still communicating objectively popular policies to the low and mid propensity voters on the Democratic Party side, but they haven't done that at all. They've hyper-focused on high propensity voters in general. They're banking on a low turnout election. That's not good. Other aspects of the campaign that I took issue with, the fact that her addressing the economic harm that people were experiencing, even though she was given a massive gift where voters did not actually hold her responsible for the problems of the Biden administration and its impact on the economy and the inflation and the negative real wage growth that they experienced under Biden for a brief moment. That kind of stuff is unforgettable for a lot of voters, but they actually originally did not say Kamala Harris was responsible for that. Now, that's good. That's a massive gift for Kamala Harris. What does she do with that gift? Not much. The price gouging stuff was great. Fantastic messaging, fantastic policy, fully on board with that, right? But they didn't go forward with that too aggressively. And instead, they kind of backpocketed that. And I personally consider that a flub. I was expecting a 2008 Obama-style run, but instead, we basically got a 2012 Obama run. And that's not good. Or worse, dare I say, a 2020 Joe Biden run. Actually worse than that because it was more conservative than 2020. Anyway, there's some good policies there, like combating price gouging. Fantastic. Okay. Good defense is there, saying that Donald Trump's tariffs, which is the only economic policy that he's put forward, is actually a mass sales tax. Fantastic. Expert. Those are both great. Expanding Medicaid to at-home care. Fantastic. It's not enough. It's actually very marginal. And it's very frustrating that that's the only thing that the Democrats are pushing for. You should at least expand it down to 55. Like you should lower the age. You should lower the age eligibility for Medicare to 55. That is literally the entry. That is like that's stepping in. Dental and vision as well. That's also important. They didn't really push that too much, but they realized that was actually popular messaging. So that definitely helped out. So on that front, that's great. Obviously, no separation from Biden on Gaza is a massive flub. That was a huge gimme. Donald Trump was beating Biden by like 30 points on the issue of Israel-Palestine. Donald Trump is now beating Kamala by the same percentage points on Israel-Palestine. And that's not a good idea. But having said all of that, why do I still think Kamala Harris is going to win? Because a lot of people will say, Hassan, you've said this already. You've ripped into Kamala Harris left and right. It's because you hate a black woman. You don't want her to succeed. Is that the reason? No. These are very real considerations. These are very real criticisms that I think are perfectly valid. I have time and time again showcased evidence, empirical evidence, messaging polls and whatnot to prove to you that what I'm saying is correct. And you can also go and watch those older videos as well. Now, I will, however, turn around and explain something very important to you. The person that was running an even worse campaign with also worse metrics overall, with a worse ceiling overall, was Donald Trump. That's it. While Kamala Harris made, in my opinion, a lot of communication mistakes, none were as bad as the routine garbanzo that you saw from Donald Trump throughout this entire process. Donald Trump's negatives are that he's too narcissistic and too chaotic and says a whole bunch of unhinged things. So much so that people who are in support of Donald Trump's ideology and ideals sometimes find themselves at odds with Donald Trump. Not to the same degree as like the MSNBC Never Trump Republicans, but certainly enough that they're like, I don't know if I'm going to go out and vote. Or in the finite amount of time that you have to make a convincing argument to not only have people be your supporters, but also go out and vote for you, Donald Trump fucked up big time. Nonstop, as a matter of fact. He had strong issues where he could have talked specifically about the economy, but there was no good policy on that front. He just kept saying, remember how good things were when I was president, trying to hold on to the nostalgia factor and the reality that Americans have short-term memory. He just kept saying, remember how good it was when I was president. But even then, he didn't even hit that point hard enough because he was entirely too predisposed with the anti-immigrant screeds. His economic policy was tariffs, which is a really stupid idea that absolutely zero people agree with, especially because Donald Trump never communicated what he was going to put tariffs on. He just said across the board on all goods, specifically coming from China, which again is idiotic because it would destroy his number one industry of his supporters, Trump merchandise, right? That was a huge issue. And also, like I said, Kamala Harris's campaign did good counter messaging on that issue. So they are capable of doing that when they want to do it by effectively showing everyone that tariffs are just a mass sales tax and that China's not paying for it. It's actually American companies that are purchasing the Chinese manufactured goods that are paying for the tariff, and that cost will be offset. That will transfer over to the consumers. That was a massive mistake. Another indication that Trump's campaign has lost the juice and the sauce, and also its capability of reading the room, or rather maybe reading the wrong room a little too much, was the anti-trans ads. Now, I've talked to people who work for campaigns. I talk to them all the time. And there are people who would shock you that also agreed that the Trump campaign, the anti-trans campaign, was actually a banger. I was shocked personally when I heard that from people. I was like, what? Are you serious? And I had to sit there and explain to them why this is not a banger at all. A lot of people in the DC bubble are lost in the sauce a little bit. Okay. And it is a sober reminder for me that those people are also on Twitter. Okay. The Beltway demons are also on Twitter all the time. And their understanding of the world is also motivated by things that they see online. Oh, you're straight up wrong. Anti-trans rhetoric plays great to the base, and they're winning more and more anti-trans legislation every year, man. Yeah, that's right. It's so popular that they always have to package anti-trans legislation that literally fails usually if they try to actually do it through a democratic process, like the North Carolina trans bathroom bill. They had to go back to the drawing board and figure out a way to tie it to something that people do care about, which is sports. A meritocratic approach to sports is something that Americans still believe. And that's the only one that has actually penetrated public consciousness in a country where 64% of the population still say trans people are disproportionately targeted and it's unfair. People might be transphobic themselves. We heard the Trump supporter that Owen Jones was talking to look at the situation and basically say, I don't want my child to be trans. And then Owen Jones was like, okay, what if your child was like friends with a trans person? And the guy said, yeah, I wouldn't stop them. I'm not transphobic. There's a reason why even Jake Paul, who is incredibly transphobic, still feels the need to say that he does not hate anyone, including trans people, because at the end of the day, everyone's a liberal in this goddamn country. And that's something that you need to remember. What this means is that while most people think trans people are weird, most people are definitely slanted towards transphobia, given how rigid the gender binaries are in the way that it's been taught and how deeply personal our gender is in the way that we understand it, even though it's outdated. People still do not vote for anti-trans legislation. So if you have a finite amount of time to make a convincing argument, if you need to get people to come out and vote for you in the polls, you cannot run on an anti-trans panic narrative. You just simply cannot do that. And there is already a fantastic example, fantastic proof for this not working, and that is the 2022 midterms. People think it's weird to constantly and consistently on trans people. When it comes down to the election, most people are like, I just want food on my table, man. I care about the kitchen table. And trans issues are not kitchen table. This is something that I have consistently talked about and consistently defended. That is a big mistake for the Trump campaign. The constant hyper-focus, hyper-fixation comes across as weird to the normal whites. It comes across as weird unless you're hyper online and you watch Matt Walsh and you mainline the anti-trans stuff and you're participating in like the firebombing campaigns of like sending bomb threats to the children's hospital or whatever, which is a tiny, minuscule percentage of the Republican base. Most of the rest of the Republican Party are not that motivated. And all of the anti-trans legislation that has passed in this country has passed in the state legislature. That's it. And state legislatures are inherently undemocratic because of the way that redistricting works, because of the way that districts are drawn. That's it. You can tell me all day, every day that transphobia and trans panic is a really resilient, really good message, really good narrative. It's not. There is no evidence to suggest this. There is actually only evidence to show, to prove that it has been an outward, unsuccessful way to campaign. A lot of people, even in the Republican base of support, view the anti-trans weirdos in the same exact way that they view the anti-abortion weirdos. You start looking like the type of dude who's really sweaty and really gross, parked outside of a Planned Parenthood, yelling at a 14-year-old trying to get birth control. Normal whites in the suburbs do not like that. They don't want to be associated with that. They find it weird. They might be transphobic themselves, but they still find it weird. This goes back to my theory of permissible bigotry. Very important theory. I know there's a lot of normies in here right now. They've probably never heard me talk about this. Okay, so I'm going to go through it really quickly. Due to social conditioning in a country like the United States of America, built on the foundation of white supremacy, indigenous genocide, and the continuation of chattel slavery, and an endless defense for capitalism. America is the perfect proto-capitalist nation, even before capitalism was codified and identified. There is a level of permissible bigotry that most people are on board with. I'll give you an example. It's called dog whistles, right? The Lee Atwater quote comes to mind. I'm going to run it really quickly so you understand exactly what I mean. This is Lee Atwater's famous 1981 interview on the Southern Strategy. There's going to be a warning. He's going to say the N-word a lot. Okay, just letting you know. In this audio made public for the first time ever, Atwater lays out how Republicans can win the vote of races without sounding racist themselves.
You start out in 1954 by saying, by 1968 you can't say anything, that hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like force busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you get so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things. You're talking about a totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing.
Yeah, by 2024, you can't say any of those things. So you say DEI, you say woke. Back in the day, it used to be affirmative action, right? States' rights is still a way to vaguely gesture to this kind of bigotry. Now, the question that I have for many Americans that are listening, that are tuning in right now, is why the need for dog whistles? Because there is only so much openly vitriolic, openly racist sentiment that Americans will be on board with. A Klansman wears a robe for a reason. A Nazi never wants to be called a Nazi for a reason. Racist people who are, some of them are your family members, you probably know what their opinions are, will not be on board with overt racism. There's a barrier, and that barrier changes. There's a boundary that changes of like what is permissible bigotry, and that happens through trends, that happens through systematic differences, systematic changes. But ultimately, there is a level of permissible bigotry that you can get away with. An example of this is Donald Trump will say Kamala Harris is a low IQ person, right? That's a dog whistle. The black woman, Donald Trump is basically saying like she's a low IQ individual, she's a low IQ person. He can't say she's, I'm not going to repeat it, but like there are certain things that he can't say. The campaign is aware that, for example, Tony Hinchcliffe wanted to call her a. They stopped Tony Hinchcliffe from saying that. They didn't stop Tony Hinchcliffe from calling Puerto Rico a trash island, an island full of trash, which of course hilariously backfired on the campaign. But that is the difference between permissible bigotry and bigotry that goes beyond that. You can talk about dominating women if you are a Republican. You can talk about being misogynistic, or you can be misogynistic to a certain degree. But once you reach above that degree, once you go beyond the degree of permissible bigotry, you are starting to lose people on your side. People who are even racist themselves don't want to be outwardly racist. They don't want to be associated with someone who is outwardly racist. And that is because a lot of people want to feel like they have the best interest of others in mind while simultaneously advocating against it. So Donald Trump has in the past danced around that permissible bigotry and has had moments where he has gone above, but he's been able to defend himself successfully in 2016 against attacks that were launched against him. But now that he is juiceless and sauceless, he no longer has that capacity. He just lets it rip quite frequently, as a matter of fact. And that, in my opinion, is why when he went on that national stage in front of Kamala Harris and said, Haitians are eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, and there's nothing you can do about it. And when he was asked about that, he was like, I saw it on TV. Even the majority of Republicans thought that was weird. Now, you might not recognize that if your only access to Republican communication is Twitter and YouTube. But when you look at 60 million people viewing that, they have a very different perspective on this stuff. And these are the people who themselves might be on board with mass deportation. And I don't think a lot of people recognize that. A lot of people in the Republican side do not recognize that. That's the problem. It's not going to have an immediate and noticeable impact in the polls if that's what you're looking for. But messaging polls that were conducted afterwards showed as such. There is a level of permissible bigotry. And if you go above that level of permissible bigotry, you come across as gross. That's the reason why J.D. Vance early on was shit on nonstop, was deeply unpopular, because in his endless brown nosing to like some of the grossest podcasters out there, he did the podcast route before he became the vice presidential pick. And in those uncovered interviews, he spoke about women as though they were broodmares, as though they were, they had one purpose, and that was to breed. You can't say that out loud. When you say that out loud, the rest of society hears you say that out loud. They're going to be like, ew, what the are you saying? Even if people themselves personally believe that. And that, I think, is a massive problem for Trump. When Trump consistently talks about immigration to a degree that is seemingly unconscionable by people who want those policies, he's not talking about the economy. Every moment that he spends saying 10 million Guatemalans are doing rapes, they're inventing new ways of raping people, that's a moment that he could have been talking about the economy, and he chose to really ham on this narrative. And that's why you have to look at what Trump's surrogates are saying versus look at what Trump is saying. Trump surrogates don't do that shit. They only talk about the economy. They literally only go, remember how good things were? Remember how good things were when Trump was president and how bad things are right now? Please stop asking me about, Trump's latest stupid thing that he said. That's it. And that Trump's people in his corner are telling him, please, sir, shut the fuck up about immigrants. Don't talk about it this much. Just talk about the economy, please. That, and consistently saying you're going to sick the military on, your enemies from within. And the fact that you have still not given up on the 2020 election makes you look like a sore loser for a lot of people. These are the issues that Donald Trump is very weak on, and he has consistently leaned on his weak issues. Even on strong issues that he has, like immigration, he's going above and beyond. He's making normies uncomfortable, and that's a problem. Do you understand? These are some of the reasons why I am telling you, I think that Donald Trump has run an even worse campaign than Hillary Clinton. More importantly, Donald Trump is tapped out. Donald Trump was not only the president for 4 years, but Donald Trump also lost in 2020. That means that he has already reached peak Donald Trump. He's already maxed out on the amount of votes that he's gotten. He will never get that many votes ever again, especially because of, mail-in ballots and during COVID, obviously, turnout was significantly higher because it's easier to vote. For Donald Trump, the pathway to victory is a lot harder than Kamala Harris. He already has hit his ceiling. So that was already a massive issue for him. And he tried to basically pick up votes from wherever he could. That's the reason why he did like the Aiden Ross style, the podcast. That's the reason why he went after the podcaster vote. That's the reason why he's going after young men specifically, young men who are low propensity voters in general and are not reliable voters at all. And there is a way to win over those young men to ensure that those young men come out and vote for you. Donald Trump did not do that. Ironically enough, Donald Trump, when he was communicating to young men directly on the podcast circuit, did what I consider harm reduction strategies, but from the right. We hear this all the time on the left. Harm reduction is a massive, massive part of the Democratic Party turnout strategy. It's a stupid way to do things, but Donald Trump was doing it as well. He did not tell young men why they must vote for him. He simply told young men, don't vote for Kamala Harris, vote for me instead. That is not going to be an effective turnout strategy for low propensity voters, which is why I'm still stating that I don't think that Donald Trump is going to drive massive turnout from young men that will come out and vote for him, because he didn't offer them anything. With Hillary Clinton, he at least had so much opportunity to just keep highlighting how toxic this person was. Hillary Clinton was a beacon of all of the things that's wrong with American politics for many people. So he could at least get a couple of these like moderates or people who are independent, people who are low propensity voters to come out and vote for him, because it was voting against Hillary Clinton. But you can't do that with Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is a generic Democrat. Donald Trump in 2016 was able to present himself as an anti-establishment vote, someone who was going to blow up the institutions. And if you were angry with the institutions, you were looking forward to what he was going to do. You were like, you know what, fuck it, I'll take a shot in the dark. Donald Trump also presented himself as a different kind of Republican in comparison to the rest of the party. He was incredibly moderate on social issues, with the exception of immigration. But he was ultimately viewed by the broader populace as a moderate on a lot of social issues. Donald Trump was pro-LGBT in 2016. All of these factors at play is the reason why I think Kamala Harris is still slated to win this election. That's it. These are the reasons as to why. These are the vibes-based analysis on top of everything else, on top of the polls, that cause me to believe that Kamala's chances are better than Donald Trump's chances tomorrow. There's obviously a lot of facts involved in this as well, in terms of how certain messages work and how certain messages don't work. But ultimately, this is why I think I am still marginally favoring Kamala Harris winning. This does not mean Kamala Harris ran a fantastic campaign. Doesn't mean that at all. As a matter of fact, I think that Kamala Harris could have run a much better campaign and built on the momentum that she had gained early on. But she didn't do that. She could have still captured the attention of these suburban white women without refusing to advocate for any sort of policies that would help her base. So what this election is going to come down to tomorrow is this. Kamala Harris will win if she has not hemorrhaged enough of her base of support, Black and brown voters, young voters in general, progressive-minded folks, or people who want, like, you know, decent policies. If she has not hemorrhaged enough from the urban population centers, and she has been able to successfully detangle a lot of the college-educated suburban whites, which they've gone after pretty aggressively, and swing them away from Trump, like 2020 Trump voters going to Kamala Harris. There's not an indication in the polls that this has been successful so far, and maybe even bring out people who obviously care about abortion and care about this restriction coming down as a consequence of Donald Trump's Supreme Court. Kamala Harris will win. On the other hand, Donald Trump's shot in the dark approach is if he is able to not only drive turnout from low and mid propensity voters, which he's defeating Kamala Harris by massive margins on, if he's able to do massive turnout come election day, if the early voters have not cannibalized the election day voters for the Republican Party, then Donald Trump will win. And it will come down to the state of Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris's chances of winning this election, after looking at all of these facts and even matching the vibes, I guess, especially when you look at past performance for the Democratic Party, or if you look at current performance for the Democratic Party and the way that people view the Democratic Party overall in the United States of America versus the Republican Party, Kamala Harris's chances of winning this election are slightly higher than Donald Trump's chances of winning the election, because Donald Trump has a tougher go here. Can you explain the Red Mirage stuff that we'll see tomorrow? I have heard stuff about it, but don't understand it. I mean, this happened in 2020 as well. Red Mirage basically is because Republicans in past election cycles have had a tendency to go and do same-day voting, that those votes are counted earlier and faster than mail-in ballots and early voters, and this varies by state, but that is the reason why it looks like, Republicans are winning in certain states. Early results give a false indication that the Republicans are actually winning by massive margins, and then once all the votes are counted, or when you look at certain projections, you can make a better analysis on who is projected to win, judging by past performance. A lot of people don't realize this, but like the official vote count does not come for sometimes weeks, if not months later. Most of the winners and losers are declared on the night of the election due to projections. That's why the media will say Associated Press is projecting a Kamala Harris victory. Now, they're usually right. There are very few instances where the media has ever gotten it wrong. And this was a big deal that especially Fox News projected certain states, Biden winning certain states on election night in 2020. That was a massively consequential thing that they did, where they actually operated with truth and integrity to a certain degree. Ironic, I know. And that really softened the amount of counter narratives that Trump could launch towards, like, oh, we're winning the election. He was very upset, if you recall. Having said that, I do not know if Fox News will do that this time around. And I'm genuinely worried that they will not be honest about their projection. So we shall see. I think I'm scared, but I think that there will be some unrest tomorrow. I don't think that is a wild thing to predict. I am genuinely fearful about this, but I do believe that there will be some unrest tomorrow because of the way that the Republican Party now operates, because of the way that Donald Trump has basically geared his base into believing that if he loses, or if it even seems like he's losing, then the election is stolen. Now, I don't know what kind of ground game they have in terms of like launching a Brooks Brothers style riot in each individual swing state, but it's definitely something that I am fearful of. I think it's not necessarily January 6th that we should be worried about, but more so Brooks Brothers is what we should be worried about happening in numerous states, in numerous cities.
Tim and I joke that our politics have sort of moved now so that we have the same politics. Like I've moved towards Tim and he's moved towards me, and so we don't disagree on anything
That's
anymore.
That's a bad clip for you on TikTok.
You know what? This is part of it.
When you run for governor in California.
Tim, this is part of it. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Show podcast.
Back in the day, there was Australian month. There was Aussie month for an entire month during the summer. These two boys would come here and stay here between VidCon and whenever they decided to leave, and they couldn't because Donald Trump took that away from you. I hope you guys are excited. We all voted for Donald Trump thinking he was going to fix. I was going to watch as well. We snuck controversial art into a famous art show. I tried to help with this, but I failed.
This is us.
I think.
Carrying a giant metal sculpture in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, trying to dodge security, so we could secretly set up our artwork.
The oversight committee, I'm sure, is trying to put together.
Guys, put some respect on
The
Julie
top
Cat
Democrat
Brown's
on that
name,
committee, Robert
okay?
Garcia,
Stop
said in a
saying she
statement,
sounds like RFK.
These disturbing photos raise even more questions about Epstein and his relationships
one
with
of
some
the
of the
most
most powerful
important
men in the world
journalists
who will
on the
not rest
Epstein
until
stuff.
the American
Jesus
people get the
Christ.
truth.
So even amongst the Republicans, what the is this? This is what, by the way, while all this Epstein stuff is happening, what's Fox News doing? Shea Fisher performs Jingle Bell Rock.
Go gliding in one horse, jingle horse, pick up your feet.
That's awesome. It's so awesome. They're like, don't look at the photos. Worry about the photos. All right, let's see what the arena with Cassie Hunt is covering.
This weekend, this Saturday, you can catch the Arena Saturday. It's going to be on at 8 a.m. and noon Eastern time right here on CNN. You can also stream the Arena live. You can
Okay, I don't care about the arena. PBS shout out. Yes, the Piker Broadcasting Service is only going to give you the news and nothing but the news. So help me God. And it is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers, as always. Your voluntary contributions in the form of a subscription or a free subscription in the form of a Twitch Prime is the only way you can support the Piker Broadcasting Service, the real PBS. Why are we here? Just to suffer? Yes. Also, at this point, Donald Trump is officially 2 hours late. He was supposed to be on at 12 p.m. Pacific time for a live signing ceremony. He is now officially 2 hours late. This is a new record for Donald Trump, by the way. A new record for Donald Trump. Do you think he had a heart attack and died? No. I don't think that. Listen to me, okay? Listen. Things that you may or may not want to happen will not happen, okay? It's just not saying I'm wishing that it's going to happen. Obviously, I would never. But you need to understand, okay?
From the House Oversight
Evil never
Committee
dies.
released photos from the estate of dead pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The photos show powerful people
He
who were
said
in
dead
Epstein's
pedophile.
including former President Bill Clinton, Steve
Legal
Bannon,
heretic, thank you
Bill
for the
Gates,
50 bones.
and yes, President Donald Trump. Now, it's important to note, none of the photos showing these individuals or President Trump depict any sexual misconduct, nor are believed to depict any underage girls. It's also not immediately clear when or where these photos were taken. But let's take a look. One image shows what appears to be a bowl of condoms with a caricature of Trump's face. The bowl has a sign saying, quote, Trump condom, $4.50. And each condom has text that reads, I'm huge. Another showed Trump with 6 women whose faces were redacted by the committee. A White House spokeswoman said in a statement, in part, once again, House Democrats are selectively releasing cherry-picked photos with random redactions to try and create a false narrative. The White House official also said no documents have, quote, ever shown any wrongdoing by President Trump. Now, other released photos included Steve Bannon and Epstein taking a photograph in a mirror, Bill Clinton with Epstein, his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, and another couple, and tech billionaire Bill Gates with the former Prince Andrew. Now, CNN has reached out to all of those men. A spokesperson for Clinton has repeatedly said he cut ties with Epstein before his arrest on federal charges in 2019 and did not know about his crimes. A reminder, the photos released today are from the Epstein estate. They were released 1 week from the deadline when the Justice Department is expected to release its files on Epstein as required by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, the bill overwhelmingly passed by Congress. We begin with Julie K. Brown, the investigative reporter with the Miami Herald, whose reporting has brought so many Epstein trafficking details to light. She's also the author of Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein story. Julie, just to start with what you took from the photos today, what stood out to you?
Well, it sort of further signifies the contacts that he had all over the world. There are some new ones that were just released, as a matter of fact, just moments ago, within the past 10 minutes. And there's some other people that are in there. Ehud Barak, who's the former prime minister of Israel, is in there. And so we know it just further solidifies the fact that we know that he was a power broker who was using some of these important people, powerful people, as leverage in order to get whatever financial deals he wanted to be done, or, you know, we don't know. There's so much mystery surrounding him and how he became as rich as he did. And there are a few answers. So these are all part of a puzzle that the Oversight Committee, I'm sure, is trying to put together.
Guys, put some respect on
The
Julie
top
K.
Democrat
Brown's
on that
name,
committee, Robert
okay?
Garcia,
Stop
said in a
saying she
statement,
sounds
quote,
like RFK.
These disturbing photos raise even more questions about Epstein and his
She is
relationships
one
with
of
some of
the
the most powerful men
important
in the world.
journalists
We will
on the
not rest
Epstein
until
stuff.
the American
Jesus
people get
Christ.
the truth. I think the question is, we've known for a long time. You made this point.
If it wasn't for
Absolutely
her
have
investigative reporting at the
relationships
Miami
with
Herald,
these
Jeffrey
men.
Epstein wouldn't have gone
I
to
do think
prison
it's important
again.
for people
Okay,
to
they
step back in these
reopened the
moments and say,
investigation because
is
of
he a
her
veritable committee
reporting.
to run the world, hanging out with him on a regular basis, which is unsettling in and of itself. But is there anything really new here?
Well, let me put it from the perspective of the survivors who I speak to quite often. From their perspective, all these people should be looked at. From their perspective, these men were in a place where there often were a lot of young girls around them all the time, around Epstein at the very least. But there have been many of them that told me that they went to certain events, dinners with people who were in the room, like Woody Allen, for example. And in their mind, that all these people should be looked at. And this case has never been taken as seriously as it should have. We know that he was trafficking in young girls and women. This does not mean that just because they were in a photo with him that any of these men did anything wrong. But all of it should be looked at.
You mentioned kind of the pieces of the puzzle that people are trying to put together. What pieces are you going to be looking for when the Justice Department releases the files it has on Epstein? Do you think that there's going to be critical pieces that you've been waiting for, looking for, thinking existed maybe, but didn't necessarily have nailed down?
I think there will be some things in there that will be new. But to be honest with you, I think most of the interesting or the new revelatory information is coming out through the estate. I always sense that the FBI perhaps got reports that they didn't act on, or that they did and they hit a wall because of political interference, or they just got nowhere with the case. I just don't think that the FBI ever investigated it as thoroughly as they should. So it will be interesting to see if some of these women who were trafficked actually went to the FBI and filed reports, just like Maria Farmer initially did, and she was ignored. How many other women over the years had went to the FBI and told them what was going on, and whether the FBI, it doesn't sound like it, but whether they took any action.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see it. To your point, the estate, House Democrats making clear they have a lot more. They're going through a lot more documents related to it right now. Julie K. Brown, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to talk about this more with Liz Stein, a Jeffrey Epstein survivor, and Lauren Hirsch. She founded World Without Exploitation to combat human trafficking and sexual exploitation. Liz, just to start with, what's it like to see photos like this released from the estate today? How are you doing?
Thank you for asking that. I think that this can be really difficult for us. And when we're seeing these photos, things that might seem like they don't matter to the general public can really be meaningful to us. I was talking to a survivor earlier who said, to the rest of the world, that just looks like a room. But to me, that's the phone that I picked up to call for help. And so these things can be really incredibly triggering. At the same time, we realize how important it is for this to all come out. You know, these images can be really horrific. There were some images that were released today that were particularly difficult for me. And we're going to see that happen as information is released. But we're really standing together, united in the fact that it is so important that this information comes out, and we're willing to sit in that discomfort while it does.
Lauren, to that point, you have worked, and I think that the combination of balance, but also strength and courage that comes with that balance. You've worked on behalf of Epstein victims, seen their reactions as more and more of these documents come out. You can't generalize an entire group, but how are people preparing for what the Justice Department is supposed to release?
You know, it's been quite remarkable to watch this force of inspiring survivors. They have come together. Many of them before September had never met one another. And now they have really become this incredibly powerful sisterhood. They are supporting each other, both forward-facing and behind the scenes. Today, we watched many of them come together and really sort of recognize that this day was very challenging, very painful, and there was this overwhelming message, I've got your back, amongst all of them. So I think what you're seeing is a really united front who are ready to stand together on December 19th and going forward to make sure that all of the files get released.
And Liz, this past Tuesday, a federal judge in New York granted the Justice Department's request to unseal records from the investigation and criminal prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. The documents will be redacted to protect victims' identities. What's your reaction to how that played out?
I think that this is information that's really important for us to see. We need to know what the evidence was that led up to her being charged with these crimes. And I think that anything that we're able to reveal that kind of shows the patterns that were in place and tells us more about the people who are involved.
Whenever stuff like this happens, I can't be the only one who wonders, like, what will Trump do to try to fucking shift the attention away from this issue? Like, are we going to invade Colombia? Like, what country are we going to explode? What new ethnic minority will he put the crosshairs on? Will it be a Latin American, immigrants coming from like a Latin American nation? Will it be immigrants coming from an African nation? Because I know he's gonna he has to do something. That's what he's done every single time. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is these women together have really moved mountains, and what comes next, we're not sure. I think in large part it depends on what we see on the 19th, what we see after. We're going to be going through what comes to us, what we see, what we don't see. If there are, high levels of redactions with information, these survivors know in large part what they've shared. And so they're going to know if there are things that are missing. And so the next step will be to comb through, to see what's there, to see what's not, and then to make sure that what's not becomes available to the survivors and to the public.
Just before I let you guys go, it's worth noting and saying repeatedly, because there's been a lot of releases and a lot of information. Moves mountains is an understatement with what this group has been able to accomplish. Liz Stein, Lauren Hirsch, really do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So are House Oversight Democrats cherry picking which photos to actually release? That's what the White House says. We're going to ask a Democrat on the committee. That's a head.
What was
Plus,
the glove for? It's a
California Governor
dildo
Gavin
glove.
Newsom,
Every finger has a different. It's a dildo glove, and every single finger has like a different dildo. What does it do? What do you mean? It's just to fucking shove it in people's asses, dude. A dildo glove, a glove dough. How do you know this? Because I have a fucking brain, dude. What do you mean? How do I know this? It's a latex glove, and every finger looks like a dildo. It's just basic. I don't think you need to be freaky to know what it's for. Those things aren't rare. You see them in any adult novelty store. I've never seen one until that very moment. It's for doing electrical work. Yeah. It's ribbed for her or his pleasure. Why do you think it's ribbed? I assume the point is to shove it into a hole. Freaky Unk strikes again. Okay, dude. It's fucking ridiculous. Fox News. What is Fox News up to?
Well, it looks like Christmas came early for Republicans.
Oh, Newsom defends healthcare for illegals. That's one of the redeemable things that Gavin Newsom has done as of late, is to say that healthcare for all means healthcare for all, including our immigrant neighbors.
Out of that, because I believe in universal healthcare. Others
I don't think he believes in universal healthcare.
We failed on the border. We need to own up to that. Largest border crossing in the Western Hemisphere in my state. Spent $1 billion+ to do migrant centers, try to put a lid on things. It was quite critical, but I tried to do it in a respectful way of the Biden administration. We failed on the border.
And
yeah, he's been beefing with Elon Musk too.
Yeah,
so we'll talk about Gavin Newsom real quick, because that's an important part of the story as well. That's another big story of the day. So Gavin Newsom has been
lawyer to Trump, was now a counselor to the president.
It's kind of funny because like Alina Habba apparently cannot even be a lawyer. Trump's RGB lawyer, Alina Habba, she was in the news recently. And Paul Ingrasio, or whatever his name is, also was put up for a position that he could not get because he was just, saying unhinged ass bullshit. All right. Anyway, yeah, let's get back to the Andrew Tate brothers. Andrew Tate brothers, the Tate brothers. New York Times conducted an investigation of how the Tate brothers were freed from Romania, and everything that you thought that was going on in the background turns out was real. Okay.
Confinement in Romania.
Yeah, Epstein Jr., the poor man's Jeffrey Epstein.
Andrew and Tristan Tate posted a video.
Not gonna lie, as a Maoist, I cringe at your glazing of Dengism. It's literally Keynesianism. Okay.
To their followers.
Or massively back. Massively.
They were in a private plane being whisked to Florida. Since 2022, they had been under criminal investigation in Romania. They had both been accused of trafficking dozens of women into a business that they ran. Andrew had also been accused of raping one of those women and of having sex with a 15-year-old. Prosecutors in Romania had prohibited them from leaving the country.
Feel that? It's the feeling of leaving Romania's soil.
This moment is the culmination of years of efforts by the Tates to cozy up to conservative influencers, members of the Trump family, and administration officials. My name's Megan Toohey. I'm an investigative reporter here at the New York Times. My colleague Isabella Quai and I have spent months interviewing dozens of people in Romania, the United States, and Britain. We have reviewed hours and hours of video clips, hundreds of pages of text messages and emails and court documents. And we're able to piece together how the American right helped the Tate brothers get out of Romania. Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan are major stars in the so-called manosphere.
Welcome to the party, gentlemen. He-Man, woman haters party. It's a man's party.
Andrew is a former professional kickboxer who built a huge online following, preaching unapologetic masculinity and chauvinism.
All of history was built by men, always has been. If a woman is going out with a man, she belongs to that man. That's his woman.
He's told his audience that they were victims of feminism, that they've been maligned by the economy and brainwashed by the media.
You are now full slave mode. And that's all they want. So you will continue to work your shit job for shit money.
He and his brother have gained millions and millions of followers. They sell online courses to young men about how to make money and how to exploit women. That included this PhD.
Yes, as I've said over and over again, this is insecurity masquerading as masculinity, okay? These guys love presenting themselves as beacons of masculinity, when in fact, they are simply masking their insecurity, okay? And the issue is a lot of other also insecure young men cannot see that these are just insecure older men, and they lean into it.
Program, short for Pimping Hose Degree. They share what they say they've learned in pushing their girlfriends into making online content for paying customers.
It's not just about picking up girls. It's about converting them into really loving you enough to moving in with you and working for you and giving you all the money.
The brothers, who have both American and British citizenship, started this business over a decade ago in Britain. In 2015, Andrew was arrested 3 times after multiple women accused him of. And while prosecutors eventually declined to bring charges, the investigation prompted Andrew to leave Britain. Andrew said that he thought that they'd be better served in Romania.
It's a little bit lawless, you know? You can get away with shit you can't get away with in the West.
Eventually, the brothers get banned from several of the biggest social media platforms, only to find new homes on Rumble, a site that was backed by J.D. Vance's venture capital firm, and Getter, a right-wing site. And then things really explode. In December 2022, the brothers are arrested in Romania. They had been under criminal investigation for several months after a complaint that an American citizen had been held by them against her will. The brothers are charged with organizing a criminal group and trafficking 7 women into their business. And Andrew is also accused of raping one of those women. And later, prosecutors in Britain would bring charges of trafficking and rape against Andrew and Tristan.
Literally roping in JD Vance for no reason. No, it's not for no reason. And you will understand why it's actually relevant. Rumble is a right-wing website. Like it's not an accident that all the right-wing content creators are on Rumble. I think they tried to do an initiative and they tried to be more they tried to be like a website for all. They tried to become like a market competitor to Twitch. They even had an initiative with IShowSpeed and Kai Cenat. I believe they just like dumped boatloads of money in that direction. And then I think they did like one episode and then never again. And they just basically got the bag and moved on. But yeah, the face of Rumble right now is Nick Fuentes. So they have this like super pro free speech attitude, but you know what it's code word for, obviously. But the reason why it's like backed by JD Vance's venture capital firm is for that reason.
Additional charges that have been authorized will move forward once the Romanian case is complete. Through our reporting, we also found that the Tates have been quietly under investigation here in the United States by anti-trafficking agents and federal prosecutors. Andrew and Tristan Tate deny all allegations. While all of this is happening, they're building more and more powerful allies in the United States. In 2017, as Andrew tells it,
throwback to the times you put him live on stream 2 times just for him to duck you a 3rd time shortly after, you laughing straight to his face for like 10 minutes, killed his ego at the time. I know. It was when that was the first domino falling, I would say. Because right up until that moment, he was on a rocket ship, superstardom, leaning into extreme misogyny, just like women hate, and he was blowing the up. And then, for once, there was a dude who was like, "What are we doing? This is bullshit." Where's Kai? And she's still lapdog, or rather, does she still fit? She's still a lapdog in her heart. She's on a walk right now. Anyway.
He did a tweet in support of Donald Trump, and soon Andrew and Don Jr. had connected at Trump Tower.
The president's son, he made me a coffee. Like, he's a cool dude.
And this support and this relationship continues through 2023. When Andrew and his brother are placed under house arrest, Don Jr. sends out a tweet of support. By that point, the Tates had hired Joseph McBride, this attorney who had come to prominence representing Trump supporters accused of insurrection on January 6th, and McBride to conservative host Tucker Carlson, who tracked.
What do you respond to the doubling of the workforce argument? How are you still single and still henpecked? I guess you know your audience. Henpecked? You unironically say shit like henpecked, dude? What the happened to this guy? How did this person get so brain broken? Because henpecked is like you're a white knight. Yeah. You're a cuck to women. Ran out of meds, maybe. It's like incel terminology. Pussy whipped. Yeah.
Travels to Romania and conducts a lengthy interview with Andrew in his mansion.
I mean, I was sympathetic to you already, but a man's accused of human trafficking. It's worth finding out what he's accused of.
The Tucker Carlson interview gets more than 112 million views. This is a key turning point. Soon, other high-profile conservatives are defending the Tates.
When I see some of these videos and I see conservatives assigning like real meaning to you saying stuff that is just so obviously content for young boys.
Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan stand for the same things that I stand for.
Some real principled conservative values, I'm glad that we got a demonstration of the real principled conservatism that I hear about all the time.
These relationships are mutually beneficial. These conservatives are tapping into Tate's.
Have you talked to Peanut? Who's Peanut?
Audience to expand their reach and connect with a demographic that is crucial to the president's reelection campaign.
Listening to him with Tucker for an hour and a half, 2 hours, it clicked.
Ignore the bait.
Okay, now I see why he's popular.
And by 2024, Barron Trump is also a fan. Barron hosts a dinner at Mar-a-Lago for several prominent conservative influencers. One of them was Justin Waller, who has helped the Tates run their businesses and says that he's widely seen as the third brother. Waller told me that Barron admired the Tates, and he said that he and Barron called Andrew together and discussed the Tates case. When we reached out for comment, McBride called our reporting on the relationship between Andrew and Barron fake news. So the Tates are building up a lot of support here in the United States. And after Trump is reelected, some of those supporters have even more power and influence than they did before. Paul Ingrassia, who had once served on the Tates legal team, is now the White House liaison to the Justice Department. He had called Andrew Tate an extraordinary human being and a target of the deep state and the satanic elite. Alina Habba, who had served as a personal lawyer to Trump, was now a counselor to the president.
It's kind of funny because like Alina Habba apparently cannot even be a lawyer. Trump's RGB lawyer, Alina Habba, she was in the news recently. And Paul Ingrassia, or whatever his name is, also was put up for a position that he could not get because he was just, saying unhinged ass bullshit, like incredibly racist things, and demonstrating Hitler admiration in private group chats. So, a great team overall that Donald Trump has surrounded himself with. Fantastic. Yeah. Alina Habba, former Trump attorney. Alina Habba resigns as top federal prosecutor in New Jersey following an appeals court ruling last week that found she was unlawfully serving in the role. Habba said in a statement posted on social media on Monday that she was not quitting in the face of legal challenges, but instead resigning to protect the stability and integrity of the U.S. Attorney's Office. The decision will not weaken the Justice Department, and it will not weaken me. After Trump returned to the White House, he tapped Habba in March to serve as the acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey on an interim basis. He also nominated her to serve in the position on a permanent basis, but she failed to garner enough support in the U.S. Senate to win confirmation. Anyway, that touched off legal challenges that culminated in the unanimous ruling last week from a 3-judge panel in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. The court found that Habba was unlawfully serving as a U.S. attorney, and it disqualified her from supervising cases. The reason for that is because after Trump returned to the White House, he tapped Habba on an interim basis, then wanted to make it a permanent basis. The Senate refused to confirm it. With her 120-day interim tenure about to expire, the U.S. District Court for New Jersey opted not to keep her in the job and instead appointed a career prosecutor, Desiree Grace, to the post. Attorney General Pam Bondi then fired Grace, and the administration undertook a series of complex legal maneuvers to put Habba back in charge. And then the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit decided in a unanimous decision that she was not lawfully serving as a U.S. attorney, and it disqualified her from supervising cases. So she's not actually resigning. She's being fired from her position by force. Damn, they really wanted her in that position. She must be really qualified. Yeah, well, she is, because the only qualification that Trump cares about is dick riding. So in that sense, she is the most qualified because she was a loyalist through and through. I still suspect that they unanimously decided she was unfit for the position because she's a gamer and everybody knew be Alienware laptop. But that's just my own headcanon. Don't take that seriously.
She appeared on a podcast with Andrew in January.
We need strong, powerful voices like yours. And I got your back over here.
And this man, Richard Grenell, a special diplomatic envoy for Trump, discussed the Tates case with at least 2 Romanian officials. Our reporting found that one of those discussions took place last December at Mar-a-Lago with an advisor to the Romanian Prime Minister. Ponta told us that he had discussed the Tates case with Grenell. He then backpedaled and said they had not discussed the case. The other discussion was with Romania's foreign minister at a
That's crazy that this is such a, this was a big enough deal that there are people in the Trump orbit that were actively trying to extract the Tate bros out of Romania. Fucking insane, dude. I mean, what are we doing?
Conference in Munich in February. In a statement to the Times, Grenell said it was the foreign minister who raised the issue of the Tates. His statement did not address the Mar-a-Lago conversation. The public support from some of these allies set off alarm bells in Romania. Officials at the American embassy in Romania told us that they feared what would happen if their bosses in Washington instructed them to release new passports to the Tates in violation of the Romanian criminal justice system. It didn't come to that, but an extraordinary order came down from the highest levels of the Romanian government.
Why do they feel they even need to go out the bat for the Tates, though? They don't have anything to offer for Trump except for clout. I mean, clout is all it takes. It's also a message. It's a message to everyone. If you are loyal to the Trumps, if you glaze the Trumps, we'll get you out of trouble. It's the same principle behind like pardoning all the January 6th offenders. You know, you can do criminal shit. It doesn't matter. We'll protect you. If you are a right-wing commentator, we will protect you. Also, birds of a feather, you know?
On February 26th, Andrew sent a text message to someone close to him that we reviewed. He had been
The left and the right does the same thing. Oh, yeah, no. Who could forget when Joe Biden did that as well?
made aware that he was going to be released. He wrote, I have very detailed instructions from the Americans about crossing borders, phones, passports, etc. I can't say more. This goes into instant effect. The next day, the Tates file a request that prosecutors lift their travel bans and return their passports. We spoke to sources who spoke to us on the condition.
Yeah, the leftist Biden. Like, I know it's a joke to even consider Joseph Robinette Brandon to be a leftist, but like, even if that guy thinks that, can he point to one fucking example? Like, do you understand? Obviously, Joe Biden is not a leftist. It's laughable. But even if he was, can you give me a fucking example, please? Like, there is no fucking world. Like, Hunter Biden was literally prosecuted under the Brandon regime. Okay? He straight up was. And for one Hunter Biden incident, there is like literally a million things that Donald Trump has done. He has pardoned Honduran drug traffickers, a former president of Honduras. Only as recently as in the past 2 weeks, he did this. Yeah, Hunter Biden's crime was nowhere near as severe as even what the fucking Tate brothers were allegedly doing. There's not even a question
Of anonymity, who told us that the prosecutors acknowledged.
It's so funny. Donald Trump is literally selling pardons for cryptocurrency. And there are still dumb fucks who are like, nah, it's the same. Both sides are the same. No, the fuck they're not, man. I'm not a fucking friend of the Democratic Party, but goddamn, dude, I'm a friend of the truth, okay? And you are a fucking moron. There is plenty of shit that you can say about the Democrats. There are plenty of valid criticisms of the Democrats. But when it comes down to transparent criminal behavior, the Trump administration stands alone, dude. They are unique even from a Republican perspective. Like, they've reached beyond ideological boundaries. They are worse as far as on this issue, as far as like transparent grift, utilizing the power and the legitimacy and the authority of the office for personal favors. I cannot think of another president that's come near this. I mean, the last time a Republican tried to do that was Richard Nixon, I guess. It's not even close, dude. Nobody has been this transparently corrupt. You can say, oh, other presidents have done incredible corruption as well, certainly. But none of them have done it in this broad daylight fashion. It's also low-level shit, too. Like, it's not even all high-level stuff. It's just like, as long as it directly lines up his pockets, he's there. I mean, cryptocurrency scamming is like the bottom of the barrel shit. It's crazy.
Want to do this. But the prime minister believed that lifting the travel bans would appease the Trump administration. He did not respond to requests for comment. In the early hours of February 27th, the brothers were driven to a private plane.
No one has ever been more back than we just got.
At the time, we asked McBride, their lawyer, whether the Trump administration had anything to do with their release. And he didn't answer the question directly, but he said, quote, do the math. These guys are on the plane. Once they're back in the United States, the Tates are filming themselves partying in Miami, looking at apartments in New York, hobnobbing with Kanye West in Los Angeles, but they weren't welcomed by all. There were some conservatives who spoke out against them upon their arrival. Some said that they undermined traditional conservative values. Other people likened the allegations against them to the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. Through all of this, it's becoming clear that there is a rift on the right. Trump says he knew nothing about it.
I know nothing about that. You're saying he's on a plane right now?
An official with the White House said it is not involved in anything related to the Tate's legal matters.
In March, they returned to Romania for a court date and have not come back. Shortly after they left, one of Andrew's former girlfriends accused him of assaulting her when they reunited during his visit. She said that when they had sex, he had beaten her and choked her to near unconsciousness, which he denies.
The Jeffrey Epstein files have become a defining issue for Trump in his first year back at the White House, stoking allegations that his administration is covering up for the most notorious sexual predator in recent American history and his accomplices. But something that's flown under the radar is the story of how this man and his brother, two of them there, both facing charges of rape and human trafficking in Romania, were suddenly allowed to return to the United States, and how the Trump administration might have been involved in that. One of those men, Andrew Tate, is one of the most proudly, violently misogynistic influencers in the world, with an enormous following online, particularly among young men and even teenage boys. And in his online content, he and his brother have bragged about their recruitment and exploitation of women to make pornography. Both brothers have repeatedly denied criminal wrongdoing. Well, now the New York Times, in a remarkable investigative report, finds that they were released from Romanian custody only after Trump administration officials intervened. An official in the White House told the Times that it was not involved in Tate's legal matters. But the Times reports that 6 days before Trump's inauguration, Andrew Tate wrote in a text, quote, "I had word from the Trump administration that they're on top of things. I've been told I'll be free soon." And here is how the Tate brothers reacted when, in fact, they were freed. And they boarded their flights back to the States the very next month.
You know you are, Andrew. You know what we are? We are back. We are so back. No one has ever been more back than we just got.
We never really left. So now we're back. Never left, but we're massively back.
Megyn, too, is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter for the New York Times, one of the reporters who broke that story, and she joins me now. It's great to have you here. This is phenomenal work.
Thanks for having me.
I say that to you a lot because it's always true. So first, I guess, just for folks that don't know who Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan are, can you just give us a sense of who they are and what kind of content they made and what their message is?
Sure. So they are huge stars in the so-called manosphere. Andrew Tate, in particular, has built a massive audience of mostly young men by preaching brazen masculinity and chauvinism. And they have also taught courses on how to date women and exploit women and make money, and have also, very notably, run a...
I don't think this, I think we need a different fucking term for this, because it's not masculinity. They're being weak as fuck. This is not masculinity at all. It's something entirely different. I'd go so far as to say it's beyond toxic masculinity. We're talking about alleged sexual predators.
Business for about a decade, in which they kind of bragged about basically dating women and then steering those girlfriends into making content, online sexual content, in which they take most of the profits.
If I'm not mistaken, I think one of the courses they offered was like a pimping course, right? It had the acronym PIMP.
Yeah,
right?
it was a PhD, short for pimping hose degree.
Yes, and the whole idea was, and again, they would say this is, we will teach you how to find women, create some sort of what appears to be romantic connection with them, and then use that to manipulate them into them making sexual content that you profit off of. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they were born in the United States, but grew up, spent much of their life growing up in Britain. And so they launched this porn business, if you will, around the mid-2010s when they were based in Britain. And then in 2015, they moved to Romania. We found out Andrew was actually under criminal investigation then for alleged assaults of multiple women. And as he tells it, thought that Romania, was a place where you could get away with a lot of stuff that you couldn't get away with in the West.
I think he even said that.
He even
right?
said that, yes.
Get away with.
Yeah, exactly. And so they move, they basically relocate to Romania. And so they're running this business out of both like Britain and Romania. They're growing it into a variety of platforms with a variety of women. And so they're doing all these things simultaneously. They're doing the porn business. Then they're teaching the online courses in which they're basically saying, we'll teach you the lessons we've learned from this.
And there's some of the the MMA stuff, fighting and working out, and they're like, he's super ripped and all that, like all of that stuff adjacent to the sort of exploitation.
Exactly, like super fitness. I mean, Andrew got his start as a professional kickboxer, so it's really maximized that image.
So they have this huge following. Now, so that's sort of uncontested, right? That part of it, like that this is what they're about. And they've said it, and they've talked about needing to treat women like slaves, and you need to dominate them, and you need to treat them like a dog, that you say to them, you give them orders, right? And that you have to condition them the way you condition a dog. That's all stuff they've said. There are a variety of criminal allegations against them. Let's start with the Romania case. That was the reason they couldn't leave the country, because they were under indictment.
That's right. Well, actually, the reality is that they're actually under criminal investigation.
Sorry, criminal investigation. It's a different process.
It's a different process. So they have been since late 2022. They have been under criminal investigation in Romania, and the allegations are there that they have coerced dozens of women into their porn business, into what amounts to trafficking, and that Andrew has raped one of those women, and there's accusations that he had sex with and beat a 15-year-old. And so those...
I want to just say that again. There's an accusation that he had sex with and beat a 15-year-old.
Correct. And so this case, as the prosecutors have been building this case, they have repeatedly sought to keep these guys confined. And so they had been prohibited from leaving the country as the prosecutors are building this case, with the prosecutors saying that they...
It's wild that this is the type of shit that the Republicans are staking their fucking claim on, where they're staking their reputation on. I mean, obviously their reputation isn't great to begin with, but it's just like so insane that like you couldn't find a different content creator. Like, this is the guy. It also doesn't make sense that like dudes look up to these dudes. Like, I don't know. I'm not too much of a fucking old head, right? Eat louder, please. I'm so close. Take a week off.
Posed a public danger and a flight risk.
I want to read some of these texts that you have gotten in the article. This is a woman who says, do you want me to be your slave or your wife? This is a woman who, again, he's sort of, it seems to be recruiting kind of quasi-romantically and then maybe trying to move him to something else. You'll do whatever I tell you, which is the same thing. I'll choose a woman to be my wife. She'll love me enough to let me tell her what I feel like. I will decide if she's a slave. And then this is a text exchange in a text chat titled Pimps. This is two associates, along with Tristan, the brother, discussed how to punish a woman work for them. Tristan Tate, the move now is as follows. Okay, both of you go, get her out of the house. Okay, hit her if you have to. I don't care. Don't let her take her things. Thanks. Okay.
You're right. Those are among the text messages that the prosecutors have gathered. I mean, we've been pouring through hundreds of pages of court records from Romania in which they've gathered together and spelled out what they say is a long pattern of this behavior with a variety of women. There
are other criminal charges in England, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Britain, prosecutors have authorized charges. They're not just under investigation. They've authorized charges of trafficking and rape against both brothers there. And those are charges that they'll have to face when the Romania case is complete. They'll have to go to Britain and face those there. And we also realized, one of the things we discovered in the course of our reporting, I worked on this with my colleague, Isabella Quai, and what we found was that here in the United States since 2022, anti-trafficking agents at the Department.
So the chatter said, I've never actually heard Hassan's chewing noises. How loud did they have the stream on? The reason why I banned that person is not because they're actually hearing my chewing noises. The reason why I banned that person is because they're lying. The noise gate that I have is so severe that you don't actually hear the fucking chewing noises at all. He just wanted to be annoying.
Of Homeland Security, as well as federal prosecutors here in New York, the ones who eventually won a conviction of Sean Combs, have been investigating the Tate brothers.
We should also note that almost immediately upon return, a girlfriend of Andrew Tate's accused him of assault and rape. He denies those charges. She has now sued him. He has countersued her for defamation.
Right.
So that happened immediately after it came back. Now, everyone, I think, has a picture of these individuals at this point. They were in Romania. It's very clear from your reporting, even though the Trump administration has tried very hard to run away from it and deny it, and Romanian officials have tried to deny it, that there was some pressure put by the Trump administration to get these guys back to the U.S.
Yeah, well, what we found was that their release from Romania was really the culmination of like years-long efforts by Andrew Tate in particular to forge very strategic alliances with prominent figures on the American right, media figures like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, people in the Trump family, first Don Jr. and then Barron, and then eventually some of his supporters who were very public with their support and defense of him and their criticism of the Romanian criminal case ascended into the Trump administration.
Alina
after
Habba
re-election.
has talked about him. Richard Grenell, who has a kind of freelance portfolio and in fact admits that he discussed the case with a Romanian official.
Right. So, right, exactly. Paul Ingrassia, who actually served on the Trump's legal team, he ascends into the administration as well. And so after this new administration comes in, Richard Grenell in particular, we found, had discussions with at least 2 Romanian officials about the Tate's case. One at Mar-a-Lago in December of 2020, at a conference, an international conference in Munich. And what we also found was that within days of that second conversation, an order from the highest levels of the Romanian government came down to the prosecutors in the criminal case saying, you got to strike a compromise with the Tate brothers. And they did not.
They were unhappy.
They were outraged, but they did follow through with ultimately lifting their travel bans, which the Romanian prime minister believed was going to appease the Trump administration.
It's really a shocking set of events and incredibly scrupulous reporting.
Dude, the more I hear this idiotic extreme centrism shit, the more I understand why there are so many stupid content creators that people actually gravitate towards. Like, I think this makes people feel like they're smart. That's got to be it, right? Like, if you don't know anything about anything, if you don't know anything, you can just simply go, both sides do this. And then a lot of other stupid people, I think, will turn around and go, wow, that guy's fucking brilliant, dude. He's kind of right. Yeah, your dumbest coworker thinks this. Exactly. Like, I'm not a part of either fucking quote unquote team, but there is a difference. Okay. It's crazy. It's crazy to go, nah, both sides do it. The system is broken. Yeah, the system is broken. Okay. But you don't have to always hit this like extreme centrism route. There is no equivalence to what the Trump administration did in terms of like wheeling and dealing to extract people that were, no, the left gives Disney Channel happily ever after nonsense and wonders why these dudes are popping. Brother, you already explained to us that you are a fucking incel. We already know that you're brain broken. What do you mean? You just said, how are you still single and henpecked? I guess you know your audience. Do you think you actually have good insight into how the planet is because you watch the likes of Andrew Tate? Are you that fucking dumb? Like, I'm trying to help you by telling you right now, you've watched far too many weirdos on the internet and they've poisoned your brain. You guessed that, by the way? Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid guess from the way you're conducting yourself. I always assume that Twitch chatters are going to be smart enough when their favorite content creators like align with dipshits, like right-wing dipshits. They'll be smart enough to be like, yeah, this is just content for me. This is just entertainment. And I'm not going to adopt the ideology of whatever the fuck my favorite content creator is identifying with, right? But it turns out I think many people do that. Yes. Also, the chatter didn't deny it. He just basically admitted to it and said, I guessed it correctly, I guess. Brother, does that not also apply to you? Me? I watch content creators and my ideology is guided by the content creators I watch. Is that what you're saying? At what point throughout the day? No, your chat? So you mean that applies to you, not me? And yes, there's a difference between someone being like an XQC fan and then getting captivated by fucking right-wing charlatans versus someone who's going to an actual political commentary stream. Lol, chat controls us on. Lol, no denial is crazy. Oh, you let AP News guide your sense of reality too much. Shaking my head. I know. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's is it because it's Friday? I think people are just bored or something. I do feel like a lot of people are just bored of politics. It's not because it's Friday. I think a lot of people are just like, it's the holiday season. A lot of people are totally checked out of politics. So they want to make the content more fun. And the only way to make it more enjoyable is by pissing me off and having me react to it. You know?
About all this, and people should check it out at the New York Times, where you can read some of these texts and you can read more about some of the allegations against Andrew Tate and his brother, which the men deny. You should definitely check it out. Megan.
Talk about international politics. Way more vibrant. Trump and U.S. stuff is boring. Dude, shut the fuck up. Or Venezuela, because of our own foreign interests, the nation state that we have to destroy is a little different than like one sovereign nation invading another one in an act of irredentism. There's a difference there. Like, I'm not saying across the board that you shouldn't try to leverage negotiations when other countries actually decide to act out or do something that's ultimately harmful. The American justification for Iran and the Anyway, Donald Trump commanded the theft of an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. I believe America has done this before as well. Let's take a look.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an interesting day from the standpoint of news. As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large, largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening. So you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people. Well, thank you very much.
Chuck Schumer won't say if he opposes regime change in Venezuela. Oh my God. This is who we got. This is who we got, dude.
Disagree with President Trump's ultimate goal of regime change
This is the guy leading the charge against Donald Trump, dude.
in Venezuela?
Look, the bottom line is President Trump throws out so many different things in so many different ways. You don't even know what the heck he's talking about. You know, obviously, if Maduro would just flee on his own, everyone would like that. But we don't know what the heck he's up to when he.
Hello? What? Obviously, if Maduro would just flee. What are you talking about, brother? That's the.
He talks about that. So it's very, very, you cannot say, I endorse this, I endorse that, when Trump is all over the lot, not very specific, and very worrisome at how far he might escalate.
Do you disagree? Careful, last time you watched a video like this, you got accused of being a propagandist. Yeah. Remember when we watched the Ansar Allah movement take over a tanker? Yeah, they were doing that to implement a blockade against the state of Israel that was at the time committing it. America's doing this because they can, and that's it. Because they want to do their very own. They want to do their own potential in Venezuela. Fantastic. The Ansar Allah movement did this off the coastline of Yemen. America's doing this off the coastline of Venezuela, a different country, a sovereign nation. But of course, I watch one and say they're doing right. I watch this and I say this is up. I'm it again.
What happened? I mean, I know exactly what happened. It got it started a little bit, but we'll see if we can put it out. We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on that ship? Well, we keep it, I guess. Where does it go? What does it go to? Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where
follow it. Get a helicopter. Follow the tanker.